I would give my life for my children and endure any hardship, but there are two strong reasons why I would not help them buy their first home or first investment property. So let's have a look at what those are right now. Greetings, this is Rick Ward. I'm a working class wealth creator and educator with workingclasswealthcreations.com. This video will look at the only two reasons why I would not assist my millennial children to buy their first home or their first investment property. The first reason would be that the deal would ruin them financially. We all want to do whatever we can to help our children out, and buying their first home or investment property is a huge sense of pride for them and for us, and it's an exciting time. With all that emotion and excitement, often we overlook the logic and the practicalities of all these things. And unfortunately, there's many ways for a property deal to go badly that can have devastating financial results on the individual who's buying the property, as well as any of those that have provided financial security or linked themselves or went in on the deal as well. I know I was very excited to go along and help my children buy their first home, being in a position to help them both intellectually and financially. In some cases, I didn't provide financial assistance to all my children's first homes, but I provide support on all of them buying their first homes and their first investments. I mean, there's many bad ways, and we've experienced them as a family and as an individual. Some are scams, some are very complex deal structures, bad financing. Typically, though, it's poor timing in the market. We want to buy houses, pretty houses that we like in certain areas, may not be the best value. And at the timing, if you're in the wrong buy, if you buy the very peak of the property cycle, you're going to see no growth in that, and you may struggle for a decade until things move into the next cycle and you start to get some equity. And over that 10 years, hopefully your income is increased and it gets more easier to handle those mortgages. It's not such a big deal. On the other hand, if you do buy in the right type of the property cycle, things go much, much easier for you. Timing is a very important thing. That happens just so often, that people buy in the peak of the property cycle because there's excitement in the media, it's everywhere, and someone's keen again, and they jump in there, and then they find out it's a financial struggle, and maybe they really can't afford it. They're just not ready emotionally and the maturity level to actually manage their own home or their investment property. And so they either have the house taken off them, or they sell it as a loss, and they end up with huge financial burdens on them. And depending on where you are in the world, a lot of times if you go bankrupt or have a house taken off you, these debts aren't forgiven. So that debt follows you through life and just hinders you from getting ahead and starting afresh somewhere else. With the experience that I have, and if I saw the deal where this would absolutely destroy them financially, I would advise them against it strongly. I would provide support in helping them find a new deal. But if they're absolutely insistent this is what they're going to do, and I see that it's absolutely going to devastate them, I'm just not going to be a part of that to see that happen. And so I'll give you a live example of that deal that we did. Say it's very peak of the market. A property's worth $300,000. You have your purchase cost and maybe some setup costs, things like that. Let's say $15,000. So you're in for $315,000. A few months later, the property cycle finishes. You usually have a great dip, then it'll plateau and it'll stay there for a long time, and then it gradually goes back up again. But during this dip, it could drop down to say $270,000, and you're in this for 7, 8, 9 years, and you decide that you just can't deal with this anymore. You bought it originally bought it for your own primary purpose, but you really couldn't afford to do it, so you convert it to an investment property, and then it just continued to lose money for all those years. And you just want out. You can't take it mentally anymore. You just feel that's never going to come good again. So the sales cost is about 5%. So say $15,000 again. So now you're in for $330,000, and the property value is still at $270,000. You end up having to do a short sale, so you're underwater $60,000. Now that $60,000, it's still something you're going to have to repay, unless, in some places you can file bankruptcy and get out of it. But in most localities, that debt's going to stay with you. And if you haven't filed bankruptcy, you've taken out a personal loan just to get out of it. There's people that do that. There's different reasons. It's something I highly advise against, because that debt is just dead. Now you're going through life with this $60,000 over your head following you along that you're going to have to keep paying back. And that's a significant amount for a young person. And that could stop them from buying their next house for many years. And depending on how they lost that, if it went all the way down, the bank actually took it off them, they affect their credit ratings and really impact on them buying a house in the future. That's a real deal. I've been involved with that particular deal. Maybe that is your intent, that your child's first home is actually going to be used for the purpose of investment. Now we have two strong emotions involved here. We have the pride of ownership that you get of your own primary residence, as well as the greed of investment. I mean, they'll be keen reading all these investment stories on people made their fortunes, made millions through real estate. And so with the excitement, pride, greed, all these things running the emotions are really charged. And your child may put extra pressure on you to assist them to get a foothold in this market and to get going. And they'll assist them to buy their first property. The ink won't even be wet on the contract, and they'll be looking for their next one. And this is a frenzy that usually happens at the peak of a property cycle. The greed part particularly happens in resource areas. What happened to real estate in North Dakota during the oil booms, and what happened in Western Australia and the Pilbara with the iron ore resource boom. I was involved in that myself, and made millions of dollars in just a few years. And so that sort of greed and stories just fuels everything. You can make a lot of money in these situations, which I did. Dozen houses, you can make over $300,000 in 3 years on each one. So there's a fortune to be made, but you need to get out at the right time and just know when to stop buying. The last property I bought up there, I lost $600,000 in 6 months of its value, and the rent from $1,800 a week down to $300 a week, and I still had a nearly $900,000 mortgage. There's no way a young person's going to be able to absorb that, and so that's just financial disaster. And I've seen many people, not just young people, I saw many people get into that cycle and buying at the end, and because you could buy a house and it was positive geared by $600 a week, and you do buy 2 of these houses, and then you go part-time, and then you don't work at all and just live off that. But when those cycles end, it ends fast, and it happens over a weekend. And so a deal like that, your child's they're not going to recover from that. So my particular deal, if I had lost that house, which many people around me lost their properties during that time, one house would have been a $600,000 loss. And if you had 2 of them, that's $1.2 million. Even here in Australia, filing bankruptcy isn't going to make that go away. It's not going to be forgiven. So that debt follows you through. And depending on your age, whether you're very young, it's going to make a huge negative impact all through your life. And in many cases, with my associates, they were all people of retirement in their 60s, and this happened to them. There's no recovering from that. Again, seeing what can happen in that situation, I'm not going to provide assistance to my child to get into that situation. And I don't recommend any young person or anybody who doesn't have that advanced real estate knowledge or the financial resources to back it if it goes wrong. You've always got a worst case scenario that this house is going to be worth a fraction of what it is now. And can you cover these rents if you get no rent, or if your rents plummet from $1,800 a week to $300 a week? How are you going to deal with that circumstance before you purchase anything? These are all things to talk about before. The only other reason I wouldn't help my child buy their first home, whether it's a primary residence or investment, is that it's going to ruin me. Now that might sound selfish or harsh, but my reasons behind that aren't necessarily about me. Again, I put my children first and foremost, and so I need to be there to assist them, and I don't want to be a burden on them. Now that deal that we just spoke about with the mining town, or the house in the North Dakota oil fields, that happens, and it takes the child down, and it takes maybe you can't absorb it, it takes you down as well. Now you can provide no financial assistance to them, and they're not even going to be able to help you. They've got time on their side to work through, and maybe they will get it sorted out one day, but it's going to make a huge negative impact on them, and your resources are wiped. So you're going to work as long as you possibly can, but it's going to most likely, that child or one of your other children are going to have to take care of you if you have other children. And that's the The last thing I want to do is to be a burden on my children. I want to be independent and self-sufficient. And that's another classic way that I can help my child is by not being dependent on them. So that would be the second reason why I would not assist them. If I knew this was a disastrous deal, and not only did it have the potential to take them down, but it also had the potential to take me down, then I wouldn't assist them. I'd assist them in other ways, again, trying to find them a better deal, try to talk them around or explain to it, because that area may be a bad deal. And we talked about that in my other series, My Road to Wealth, where I tried so hard when I first got into investing myself. I couldn't get a house in this area because it just got so hot, so I had to move out. That area was saturated, that was gone. So I went to a new area, it was just starting out. And I got in there and I made lots of money, and then that got saturated. And so then I moved to another area. There's always areas somewhere where you can invest to get in front of the cycle. Property cycles aren't nationally. In every country, there's areas that have property booms that aren't happening somewhere else. In every state, I mean counties, you can find it in towns. There'll be parts of town that are better set than others. It has the potential for devastating results for you both. Don't do the deal. You can find another deal somewhere else. I've always said that the deal of a lifetime happens about once a month. You just got to be out there looking for them. I often see that taking care of yourself is much like the instructions you get on an airplane. When you get on an airplane, they always say when the oxygen masks drop that you firmly place the oxygen mask on your face first before you render assistance to somebody else. And that's the same with your finances. That you need to make sure that you're sorted, and so you're going to be no good. You're not going to be able to help your children out if you've gone under yourself. So put that oxygen mask on first. Make sure that you're well, you're taken care of, you can support yourself. Then you can assist your children to whatever capacity that you can, because you'll be no good to them if you both financially perish together. There's definitely going to be times when this is not a good situation for them, not a good situation for you, and you should not assist them in buying a property under those circumstances. So I hope this has given you a new way of looking at things, posing these old questions, whether we should help, whether we shouldn't help. If you have any comments about this, or you'd like to share your own story of how you may have helped your child buy their first home, please leave in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if you put in the comments, and other people can see it as well, so you can share it and assist other people when they approach this subject. So if this is the first time to this channel, and it's the sort of content that you're interested in, then I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, and you'll be notified whenever I release new content, including more content in this series. If you know other people that might be interested in this type of topic, I'd ask you to share this video, share this channel with everyone in your social networks, or any particular people that you think will be interested, people over 50 that have grown children and maybe approaching this subject themselves. If you have any questions, you can always email me at workingclasswealthcreations@gmail.com. Any questions you have, or provide you with some resources that could assist you. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or of course my website, workingclasswealthcreations.com. So until the next video, this is Rick Ward teaching you how to create, manage, and retain your first generation wealth.